morning, Forward Point. Come on, how many know he is the Lion and the Lamb? Sing with us, he's coming. He's coming on the clouds. King and kingdoms will bow down. And every chain will break. His broken hearts declare his praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Let me hear ya. Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power, and he's fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb, he's the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before, yeah! With us, so open up the gates. So open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power, he's fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before him. Who can stop him? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Let me hear you, church. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? 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 Who can stop the Lord? Our God is a Lion, the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power, and he's fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb, he's the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before him. Ooh, ooh,
Good morning, Forward Point. How's everyone doing?
Hi, everybody.
Oh, that was good. Hi, I'm Sonia, and I'm joined up here by Miss Casey.
Hello.
Here at Forward Point, we are a family of faith, hope, and love, helping people find their Because we believe you were created on, for a, and we want to be part of that story any way we can. If you're new here, Casey, what can we expect?
You can expect lots of love, like I always say. We are so happy that you're here. Make sure that you check in with me at the welcome desk. We do have a couple gifts for you, especially Mama Skinner's banana bread.
Yes.
If you haven't had it yet, you're really missing out. So make sure you connect up and get that. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are on there. The best way to get in touch with us, though, is through the Church Center app. We have everything there, you know, what's coming up, what we've done, the life groups, so much stuff, and there's a place to donate there. So if you're looking to get involved, again, make sure, I am a point of contact, so if you need to know something or if you're looking for someone, please see me at the welcome desk.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so today we're continuing with Sunday Fun Days. Woo! Today it's going to be root beer floats over at Love Handles. We're going to do it with Froyo, and then we have the root beer over there. So invite your friends. We're there till 2. Please join us thereafter. In 2 weeks, though, we are going to have sweet treats, so cookies, homemade goods. If you're interested in baking something or bringing something, there is a sign up with Miss Lois after at the welcome info desk where Miss Rachel and Miss Lois sit. So sign up there. If you can't bake or you burn things, even donating a little bit so somebody else can do it would be very helpful as well. So that's not next Sunday, but the Sunday after that. And as always, we forgot to dismiss our children. So if you're a child and you want to go up to Kidman, Miss Kiwi and Augie are back, and they will bring you up. And what else do we got going on?
One thing we have going on is for the men in the
Yes.
congregation. You guys, I'm so jealous. I mean, I want to go whitewater rafting, and it's
Yeah.
only the guys are going. If you're interested in going that, please sign up because there is limited space. And I believe it's the first weekend of August.
12th and 13th, so it's Friday into Saturday, an overnight trip. There are sign-ups on the Church Center app. Space is limited, and if you have questions or need more information, you can ask our one and only Mr. Jimmy.
And if you can't find Mr. Jimmy, you can find me, and I will
Right.
point him to you. Remember, I'm the point of contact. Okay, I think
that's it.
it.
We're gonna
So
continue with
enjoy,
the
you guys.
gathering.
We'll see you later.
Good morning, Forward Point. How's everybody doing this morning? Yeah, it's so great to be with you here this morning. My name's Jimmy. I'm one of the pastors here at Forward Point. And if you're in person or if you're joining us online, if you're streaming in your car on your way to Kentucky to go see the ARC experience like the Russells are this morning, special shout out to you guys. But wherever you are, we're so glad that you're here this morning. Have you ever tried to teach somebody how to do something without really knowing how to do it yourself? Anybody ever had that experience before? Sometimes in the age of technology, I've worked for Apple for many years, and a lot of times people will be like, hey, Jimmy, how do I do this on my PC or my Livona or whatever those other computers are? And I'm like, I have no idea. This is how I would do it if I were a Mac. This is how it would be done. But it's hard sometimes to teach people to do things that you yourself don't know how to do. Yesterday was an awesome day. It was the first Saturday in probably close to a year that I was able to spend most of Saturday with my family. Right? It's an awesome experience, but we're in this transition time at Love Handles, where Sonia has come on full time there at Love Handles and has been able to work. Yeah. It was funny. Her first full day by herself, she got like 3 5-star positive reviews on Google, and I was like, Sonia, what are you doing to me here? You're showing me up. At this rate, nobody's going to ever remember who I was. But she was able to and has been over there, and it was a great day yesterday spending time with my family and being able to do things that we had not been able to do in a long time in this season of life. But it started kind of making me realize that, I am not a super great teacher in things that I don't know a lot about. The reality is, Forward Point, I don't know a lot about frozen yogurt, all right? I did not go to frozen yogurt school. We did not. I spent my training consists of years and years of falling asleep to Adventures in Odyssey. Okay, that is the ice cream experience shop that Mr. Whitaker experience that I have. So here we are now, kind of just full-blown cannonball into this new venture to be an asset to the community, to be a blessing to the community, and we're doing this. And I'm realizing, man, there's a lot of things that I just do that I just, learn from experience, learn through troubleshooting. I'm a really good troubleshooter, so I've learned a lot about these things. So when stuff happens, I'm not great at showing Sonia, this is what I'm doing and why. Most of the time, she has to ask me, Jimmy, why are you doing that? Or, Jimmy, this machine is making a really weird noise. What do I do, right? Things that probably we should have been able to catch ahead of time had I done a great job, had I made some kind of training manual that showed and instructed on all the different ways that we should be training things, right? It can be tough trying to teach somebody to do something that you yourself aren't very experienced at. It can be very hard to teach somebody to do something when they're not very experienced at it. I spent a couple years doing phone support during COVID, Apple tech support over the phone. And there's nothing more frustrating. Let me tell you, people, you've probably been on the other receiving side of this, but there's nothing more frustrating than to be on the phone with somebody and you know how to do something, but the person on the other line is not getting what you're putting down, right? That may happen to you in real life conversations, but to me, over the phone, I'm screen sharing, I'm showing them, I have this arrow pointing at this thing, right, to touch this, and they're doing something totally different. And for the life of me, there's many times when I just wanted to reach through and be like, you need to go return your Apple product to Apple because you do not deserve to own this. You did not pay enough money for what I'm doing here to help you. It's an interesting thing when we think about the art of teaching somebody to do something and the different ways that it can be hard, the different ways that we then just avoid it altogether. So we've been in the middle of this series called Go, Tell, and Make. And we've been pulling out of Jesus' last statements to his disciples, some of the commissioning statements that he gave us, right? And the first week we looked at this idea that in our life, if we're going to be adding value to people is not about doing these great big things, right? Not about having fireworks, but it's about this consistent doing small things over and over again, but doing those greatly. Right, every time that people come into Love Handles, we make it a point. We greet them on the way in. We make sure we give them a fond farewell before they leave. Can we give you a taste tester so you can see if you like it before you come? And that's why we pride ourselves to having nothing but 5-star Google reviews over there. Not because we're trying to be a business that makes lots and lots of money, because we don't, all right? But because we want people to have an amazing experience. We want people to feel like we care more about their experience than we do about their money. So we're going to commit to doing small things consistently, doing them greatly, right? Because Jesus in Mark, he said this. He said, so wherever you go in the world, right? Doesn't matter if you're in school, if you're doing some kind of trades program, if you just decide to go straight into the workforce. Whatever you do, wherever you go, to tell everyone the good news. And whether you realize it or not, Forward Point, your life is telling a story. So you need to kind of think about, what is the story that my life is telling? One of the ways that we tell a story is our faces. Remember this? Do we need to pull out our phones and do a little selfie check this morning, right? What story is your face telling when you come this morning, when you go to your coffee shop in the morning, when you're in the drive-thru and the line's really long? What story is your face telling? And remember, if your life has been radically changed, if you're forever set on a new path because of your commitment to follow Jesus, then that heart change should reflect with some face change. All right, so I would encourage you to look, because oftentimes our faces don't reflect that, right? And oftentimes we kind of have this religious spirit, and religion, it's more about us than them. We think more about doing things based for ourselves. It could be here on a Sunday morning, or it could be anything that Forward Point does. A lot of the decisions we make are based on what can we do to reach the community? What can we do to build bridges? And that's what we want to be a part of here. So we said this the first week. We said we're going to try and save whoever we can by blessing everyone we can. We're just going to be free to bless whoever we can. They were talking yesterday about who's going to get the root beer and who's going to get the ice cream. And I'm just like, why in the world would we buy ice cream? We have a frozen yogurt shop. Let's just use our own frozen yogurt, right? It might be cheaper to get, off-brand vanilla ice cream from Walmart. But why do that? We're just going to, whatever we have, if we have the ability to give, even if it hurts sometimes, we're just going to do it. Because we're going to be a blessing to everyone we can. And then there's been this challenge, and hopefully you did it. Hopefully you took a note maybe on your phone or a piece of paper, if you're still into that kind of stuff, and you wrote down some names, or you wrote down some descriptions of people, the barista at Starbucks, or, the donut maker at Dunkin' Donuts, right? And these are some people that I'm going to enter into this strategic, intentional process. I want to pray for the person, and then I'm going to begin to engage with the person, ask them questions about their hopes and dreams, about their life, and then I'm going to invite them into my life. I'm going to build this bridge by engaging with them, not to invite them to a Sunday morning, or not to invite them to, prayer gathering, but to invite them. Hopefully at some point we get to there. We're not opposed to that. We want that. But first, we want to be based upon inviting them into your life. Who in your life is nothing like you, but loves you because of the way that you've engaged with them and you invited them into your life? So that was Go, and last week we looked at this idea for tell. Our calling is to tell the world, and a strategy for telling is to say, come and see, come and taste that God is good, right? So we looked at the story from the woman at the well, and then we had our friends who were part of our one-year celebration at Love Handles talk about the different things they got to experience. And speaking of technology, how many of you guys have done anything with AI? Anybody in here messed around with AI a little bit? Yeah, a couple of you guys. The rest of you are like, no, right? You guys are part of the people who I would get frustrated with doing phone support over the phone, right? You don't even know what AI stands for. Artificial intelligence, okay? There's this thing called Chat GPT, and what I did was I typed into my Chat GPT, I said, what did the woman at the well tell her neighbors? And this is what the artificial intelligence shot back at me. It said, the woman at the well told her neighbors, like the artificial intelligence was there, right? No, but it said, hey, you won't believe it. I just had the most fascinating conversation with a man at the well. We discussed the meaning of life, love, and spirituality. It was truly enlightening, and I couldn't help but share this incredible experience with all of you, right? And I read that. I thought, man, artificial intelligence is like, cooler than some Christians, right? Like the artificial intelligence laid that out in a way it was so much nicer, so much more inviting, so much more engaging than a lot of times what we do in Christendom, in Christianity. For whatever reason, sometimes we get scared or we get tongue-tied or we make it all spiritual and try to use these big theological words. And I just love the way that I read this. And I'm just like, man, if I was this woman's neighbor, I'd want to come out and see who this person was that they were talking about. So today we're going to make it a turn into this idea of make. What does it look like to make disciples? And it comes from another version of the Great Commission. It's found in Matthew chapter 28, and it goes like this. It says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. Right? So this is Jesus talking to the disciples, and what he tells the disciples is that I want you to go and make more disciples. So in this journey of being more like Christ and being a disciple, what we're called to do is make disciples. A disciple is somebody who makes disciples. If we had started off this morning and I had asked the question, maybe by a raise of hands, how many of you consider yourself disciples? There's a good chance that the majority of us would raise our hands. But when we realize that the definition of being a disciple is one who makes disciples, then there's a good chance that we might have to disqualify ourselves, because we look at our life and there's nobody that we can point to and say, that is somebody who I've been pouring my life into in being a disciple. This is a distinction, right? Because Jesus didn't call us to be Christians. He called us to be disciple makers. All of us would, it's easy to say, yeah, I'm a Christian. And that definition could be because you said a prayer at some point in your life. Or maybe because you racked up a certain amount of Sundays of positive attendance versus not showing up. Or maybe because you put a certain amount of money over the course of the year into the joy box, and you figure, once I hit that dollar amount, then I've earned my Christian badge. But Jesus never called us to be Christians. Jesus called us to be disciple makers, to reproduce ourselves into other people. In fact, in the New Testament, the first time the word Christian is used, it's actually used as a negative connotation. It's the people around, and they're kind of use it as a derogatory term towards the followers of Jesus. It's like, man, those Christians, right? And now we kind of look to see how many Christians there are in the world, how many Christians there are. We're a Christian nation. All these, this things that we can tie the word Christian to. We got to listen to our Christian music. When in the reality is, we're not called to be Christians, but we're called to be disciple makers. Disciples who make disciples. And what you're going to do, Jesus continues, it says, you're going to baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. The Great Commission, as it's known. And I touched on it a little bit the first week, that in reality tells us that this is more like the Great Omission than the Great Commission. Some of the last words of Jesus that he gave you and I and those disciples, and if we look at our lives, we are probably nowhere near living a lifestyle where we're a disciple and we're replicating ourselves and making other disciples. So if you have your notes, your YouVersion app, your Bible, if you want to turn to Matthew chapter 28, we're going to dive into this a little bit more. So we're going to go back a few verses, starting in verse 16, and it starts off this way. It says, meanwhile, the 11 disciples were on their way to Galilee, headed for the mountain Jesus had set for their reunion. So Jesus has died. He's risen. He's appeared to a few people here and there. He's appeared to the disciples, and he's told the disciples, all right, we're going to have this last meeting before I ascend into heaven. And it's the 11 disciples, because Judas, the one who betrayed Jesus, couldn't handle the guilt and the shame that he felt, so he committed suicide and took his own life. But here we have the 11 disciples on their way to meet Jesus. These are men who have, for all intents and purposes, given their lives to Jesus. And in that moment, how do you think they responded when they saw Jesus again? How would you have responded? Maybe similarly, right? It says, the moment they saw him, they worshiped him. The moment they saw him, they worshiped him. And we probably, we put together the things that we know. And man, maybe the Sons of Thunder, picked up some drums and the bass. And you got, Peter had to have probably been the lead vocalist and on the stage, right? And they pulled together this band and they just start singing to Jesus, right? It would be great if it was a picture Bible, so we would know what it really looks like to worship Jesus, how it's supposed to be done, because it's been something that's divided churches for generations. But it says that the disciples saw Jesus and they worshiped him, but some held back, not sure about worship, about risking themselves totally. This should kind of give us a little bit of comfort to realize here are some dudes who have spent 3 years of their lives following Jesus, have seen Jesus do miracle after miracle, have lost all faith in Jesus when he died and he breathed his last breath and he was put in a tomb, and then have their minds blown as they went to the tomb 3 days later and it was empty. They've seen Jesus. They've seen the holes in his hand, in his wrist. They've seen the holes in his feet, the holes in his side. They've seen the resurrection power of Jesus. And here they are again. They meet Jesus after all that, and some of them still doubted. Hopefully that gives you a little comfort to realize when you have some times of doubt, you're in good company. You're in a place where there's some other great pillars of the faith. And when I read this, and I thought, man, it seems like their whole lives and relationships with Jesus kind of surrounded by this idea of doubt. When you go back to when the disciples first met Jesus, right? Peter and the brothers, they were fishing and they couldn't catch anything. What did Jesus say? He said, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back out, and I want you to throw your nets on the other side. And they're like, God, you're a rabbi, you're a teacher. You stay in your lane. We're fishermen. We've been out doing this all day. There's no fish out there. Why? Why should we do this? This doubt. And Jesus says, trust me. And they say, okay, we'll do this. We don't think anything's going to happen about it, but we're going to do this. And we see this idea of doubt kind of sandwiching the disciples in their relationship with Jesus. From the beginning, there's doubt. At the end, there's doubt. And forward point, there's no way that you can have faith if there's not doubt in your life. If you don't have any doubt, then you're just kind of on this blind mission. And it's okay. It's okay to come with your questions. It's okay to wonder what happened to the dinosaurs, right? We understand we live in a day and age where it's like you have faith on one side and you have science on the other side, and never should the two intertwine. But that's not the reality. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to have doubt. In fact, it's your doubt that puts you in some of the greatest company that there is. But it's what we do with that doubt. And more importantly, even than what we do with the doubt, it's what Jesus does with that doubt. Because Jesus doesn't look at that doubt and be like, guys, for real? Right? Here we are back at the same place again. All right, I need to start over. We're going to wipe the slate clean, and I'm going to get me a whole new entourage to get this thing done. Because you guys obviously are not going to cut it, right? That's probably how we would respond. But it goes on and says, Jesus, undeterred. Like even how small or even how great your faith may be, it will not deter Jesus from his plan. It will not deter Jesus from his purpose for your life. It did not deter Jesus from his plan for the disciples' lives. Because he saw the faith. He saw the people kind of unsure. I don't know if I am willing to commit to this. I don't know if I want to give my all. And it says, undeterred, Jesus went right ahead and gave his charge. He says, God has authorized and commanded me to commission you. Even despite your faithless lives right now, even despite your doubt right now, God has given me all the power in the world. Right, just a little while ago, guys, you remember I told you the stories of being in the desert and the devil tried to, pretend like he was in charge and offered me all these things. But the reality is God has put me in charge, given me all the authority. And despite your faith, if you give me the chance, if you give me the opportunity, you and I together are going to do some great things because God has authorized and commanded me to commission you, little faith, big doubter. And this is what it's going to look like, this process of discipleship. He says what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to train everyone you meet, far and near, in this way of life, marking them by baptism in the threefold name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You see, when we got to realize is that he's called us to go out and train everyone. That's a discipleship term. It's a lifestyle. It's a formation type of term. It's not, he's called you to go out and convert everyone. He's not called you to go out and, just spew out as much of information as you can. Because here's the thing about disciples. Disciples are people who are both being trained and training others in life. Because a lot of times, if we were to translate this into kind of modern vernacular in the King Jimmy version, we would say, go out and save everyone you meet far and near from hell, marking them by raising their hand at the end of service because of our good preaching and music. The King Jimmy version will be on sale back at the info desk. Got to pay for some frozen yogurt, right? No, he says, go out and train everyone, to train them far and near in this way of life. Not just spew out more details, more facts, more truths, but to have this kind of relationship with somebody where you're training them in this way of life. If you say, Jimmy, man, I'm not even sure, right? I got some doubt. Or Jimmy, I'm new to this faith thing. Like, there's no way in the world that I could train anybody. But 4 point, let me tell you, it doesn't require a seminary degree, it doesn't require a Bible school degree, it doesn't require a high school diploma. It doesn't require anything to tell people, hey, come and see this guy who knew everything about me. And then, you know what, hey, let's talk about it. Can we get together on a regular basis, maybe once a week, or maybe I'll call you up every now and then, and let's talk about how this changes and affects our life. Or maybe there's this one area that, yes, like, wow, I've got no answers for. So let me go and get somebody who I know is more versed in that area, and I'm going to bring them into this conversation. In this way of life, he says, then instruct them in this practice of all I have commanded you, right? Because 4 point, here's the deal. Practice of all I have commanded you is this idea of, we think in our world is, you probably have heard practice makes perfect, right? But it's not practice makes perfect. My basketball coach in camp would tell me it's not practice that makes perfect, because you keep practicing the same wrong way of doing things over and over again, and you're just getting better at doing it the wrong way. My coach would tell me perfect practice makes perfect. Right? What's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And a lot of times that's what we're doing. When you practice by yourself, when you try to do this discipleship thing by yourself, that you can become more like God by yourself, what you're choosing to say is, I'm going to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. But what I needed as a young little basketball superstar, was I needed a coach to watch me as I was playing, to say, hey, Jimmy, when you're going up for a layup, you're kind of doing this weird thing with your feet, and it's affecting the way that you're gliding through the sky, so, like angelically, right? That's not something that I would see on my own, because I'm too caught up with my head and, almost hitting it on the rim, because I got up so high, right? I need to invite somebody into that process to point out the areas, point out the things that I'm doing. There's some times where we have coaches and they try to tell us, and because we're not open to it, we don't want that invite into our lives to point out some of those things. Then we hear it and we just keep on doing our own thing. And we see other people doing that, but 4 point, is that inside of us? Are we willing to take that level of vulnerability, that level of risk to say, I need you to come into my life because I want somebody, or I want a series of somebodies, a group of somebodies, that when they see me acting all boneheaded, when they see me doing something that is contrary to the lifestyle that I've said that I want to live, they can be like, Jimmy, when you treat your wife this way, that doesn't necessarily look like the kind of being more like Jesus lifestyle that you are wanting. And I hear that. And I can say, man, who do you think you are? All right, I've been married for a bunch of years. I've been a pastor for lots of years. Like, by all intents and purposes, I should get a pass, right? But that's not what it's about. Right, I'm looking to be more like Jesus than I am to be, a superstar pastor. So I need the people in my life to instruct me, to to help me practice these things in my world, right? To practice, to then instruct, and then to practice all that I've commanded you. Because when you have someone instructing you forward points, it hurts, it gets a little awkward sometimes. It's uncomfortable for sure. But a disciple is one who is being discipled, but who is also discipling others. And I think about playing basketball now with my daughter Augustine. She's the sports one of my girls, and she loves playing. You know, she's even more gangster than I am, if you can believe that, right? And she goes out there and she thinks that she owns the court, you know, all 4'6" of her. And so I want to challenge her. I'm going to challenge her. If you really want to be a basketball player and do great things, here's the deal. All she does is dribble with her right hand and do layups with her right hand, right? And I said, any right-handed person can do layups with their right hand. They can dribble with their right hand. But if you want to be a great basketball player, Augustine, you got to be able to do with your left hand everything that you can do with your right hand. So I tell her, all right, put your right hand behind your back and just dribble with your left hand. And it is some of the funniest looking things that I've ever seen. Watching, you know, little 9-year-old Augustine trying to dribble with her left hand because she's never done it. So it's like the ball's going everywhere. And all right, I now try to do a layup, and she can barely get it out of her hand with her left hand, right? Like, it's awkward, and it's ugly, and it's not sexy by any stretch of the means. But it's important. Because I know where you want to be in a year from now, Augustine. I know where you want to be in 2 years from now. I know where you would love to be in high school and to really play this game well. And to be able to do that, she's got to allow me to come into her life and point out some areas that can help her improve. To practice. Not just to be like, oh, Augustine, the way you dribble with your right hand and shoot with your right hand like everybody else is so amazing, right? That's the kind of the culture we live in. Everybody gets a trophy, right? Everyone is amazing. Everyone's not amazing, okay? At least when it comes to sports. God made everybody amazing. But when it comes to sports or poetry, or everyone's got their own special gifts. But God's called us to practice all that I have commanded you. Because forward point, disciple means putting into practice whatever you are learning. If you want just a most basic, what is a disciple? It's someone who says, you know what, I'm going to begin to put into practice whatever I'm learning. Maybe you listen to podcasts. Maybe you come on a Sunday morning. Maybe you go to life group and you're learning something. You're getting some kind of nuggets, hopefully. That's why you keep coming back. And you're saying that I'm going to begin to put into practice these things that I'm learning. But what really happens is we have Christians. And what Christians tend to do is they go listen to podcasts, or they come to a Sunday morning gathering, or they go to a life group. And what they do is they hear one thing, maybe even get a little emotional, maybe even get, you know, some tears, and it's a great experience. But then the next day, they totally forget about everything that they just happened. Or they refuse to take the next step of inviting someone to help them in this new thing that they've learned. And that's what we have in not just America, but really in the world. We don't have a Jesus problem. We have a Christianity problem. Because we weren't called to be Christians. We're called to be disciples. And he gives us this encouragement after this challenge. He says, but here's the deal, guys. With your lack of faith and all the awkwardness that it's going to feel like, I am going to be with you as you do this. Man, sometimes I get so frustrated because there's so many times that people say, man, where is God? I don't see God. God doesn't show up like he said that he would. But it's in these lives where we're doing everything based on what we want, what we wanted to go after, the life we wanted to live. And the promise isn't that Jesus would be there with us just all willy-nilly with whatever we decide to do. He says if you commit to this art of putting into practice, this art of being a disciple and making disciples, then here's the good news. I will be with you. Not as you pursue this lifestyle where you got everything together, where you're in control, where you can make it happen. But when you take this step into this realm of vulnerability, into this realm of unsexiness where you're trying to shoot with your left hand and it looks goofy, it's going to be okay, because then I'll be with you as you do this day after day after day, because you're never going to master it. It's always going to be something that, if you allow people into your life to say, hey, when you do this, when you take a jump shot and your elbow's all the way out here into the side, try to tuck it in like this. There's always going to be something a little bit more fine-tuned. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to be weird. You're going to feel silly because you've been doing this faith thing for years. Or you're going to feel silly because everyone around you has been doing this faith thing for years, and you feel like you should have this. But Jesus' promise to be with us is not based on you getting it all done right. It's just based on you committing to the process of being discipled and making disciples. Because a disciple is somebody who makes disciples, and he's going to be with us day after day after day, right up to the end of the age. To make disciples, Forward Point. That's what we're committed to do. That's what we want to do. Because our world has got a Christian problem. And the answer to it is disciples. And it's hard because the Christianity problem, it's from the surface, it's pretty sexy. Okay, let's be honest with you. Here, check this. Go on this journey with me. Here's the deal. If I got up on this stage and I put together a series of 365 of the best sermons, and I preached one of those every day for 365 days, and 1,000 people rose their hand at the end and said, I want to give my life to Jesus. Here's the deal. After 1 year, how many people do we have? I gave you the answer. It's on the screen. 365,000, right? All right. How about after 10 years? How many people? Who could do the number? 3.6 million. All right. How about after 25 years? G-pop. Carry the 20. He ran out of fingers and toes. 9,125,000, right? How many years do you think it would require for me on my A game, winning 1,000 people to Jesus every night, with the band playing, with the fog machine rolling, and I'm, working everyone up, and raise your hand if you want to, right? How many years would it take to reach the world? I know you never get it. 21,000 years, right? 21,000 years. Anybody got 21,000 years lying around that they could put towards this cause? Anybody? Yeah? You and I got to start eating together. I got to eat what you're eating, okay? Now, let's take this unsexy route of discipleship, all right? Christianity versus discipleship. Here's the deal. If I chose to say, I'm going to pour my life into one person, right? I'm going to take one person, and I'm just going to do life with them. I'm going to commit to checking up with what's going on in their life during the week, how they're living, their highs, their lows, where they see God moving and acting. How many people have I touched after 1 year? 2, right? Because here's the deal. I'm going to be affected by this process just as much as they are. There's 2 of us at the end of the year, right? How about this? After 10 years, how many people have been discipled? 1,024 people, right? Each year, I'm choosing to disciple somebody new, and that person is choosing to disciple somebody new, right? How many people after 25 years have... You see, this is so unsexy compared to the Christian way. But how many people after 25 years have been discipled? 33,554,000, right? And then after, how long do you think it would take to reach the entire world through this unsexy method of discipleship? 33 years. You see, this is the power of multiplication. You should put this power to work for you in your finances, all right? You should start saving. Compound interest and multiplication, it works in your advantage. But in the realm of what Jesus has called us to, in this super unsexy method of just focusing on one person, like, Jimmy, for a whole year, you want me to spend my life just with this one person? That's not going to get the job done. But I love as I was putting these numbers together and came to this last man, Jesus, his life here on earth was 33 years. I don't know if that was, but I don't believe in coincidences. But I got 33 years, hopefully, that I could give to this idea of just 1 year at a time. I'm going to disciple somebody, and I know that I'm truly discipling somebody if they are becoming somebody who is going to disciple somebody else. Right? Me just pouring into somebody who becomes a better Christian is not the Great Commission. But me pouring my life into someone else who's going to pour their life into somebody else is the Great Commission. Is the process of going and telling and making. And this is what we're called to. And I got to ask for a point this morning, are we more of a Christian or are we a disciple? Because a disciple is someone who's taking what they're learning and putting it into practice. A disciple is somebody who is making disciples. So we come back to our list here. We started sharing with in week 1, right? This list of who are the people in my life that I can just begin to build bridges with, to tell and to say, hey, come and taste and let's let me get to know more about you. What if you took one of these lines and one of these lines was just going to be for somebody that you wanted to disciple for this next year? What if everybody said, okay, I'm going to commit to being a disciple, someone who's going to be discipling somebody else, both being discipled and discipling somebody else? Who is one person in your life that you can begin to pour into? Right? And maybe there's a couple people. You begin to write down some names, and what you're going to do is you're going to just start to pray for those people. Say, God, I'm going to commit. I'm going to start with one. I'm going to take one, and I'm going to dive into this idea of just being discipled, but then also to being a disciple maker. And as that one person, maybe God begins to place on your heart, you begin to engage with them. And then you invite them. Because remember, disciple making is an intentional process. It has to be one that you are both invited to and one that you have to ask somebody to. Maybe you're here this morning and you say, man, I need somebody like this in my life. And what you need to do this morning is you need to put on the list, you need to write down some names of people who you want to disciple you. You could be 3 this morning here. You could be 300. But you don't outgrow needing to be discipled. And you are never too young to discipling others. You take what you have and you share it. You put into practice with the group of people what you're learning. And we begin to see, not right away, not after a year, it's not glamorous, not even after 10 years, but what begins to happen as we put in the hard work, as we take our doubt and we say, despite this doubt, we're going to go undeterred because God has given all authority to Jesus, and Jesus is with us as we do this day after day after day. Not in the super awesome system where once a week we all get together. That's important, and I'm so glad we have this time, and it's some of the most meaningful times in my life is the times I get together with you. But being a disciple is outside of these walls, where the rubber hits the road, where life begins to happen, and you have this dialogue and this formation happening. And that's why Ford Point, one of our pillars that we've said here at Ford Point is that we believe in the passionate volunteer over the paid professional. Man, I spent years of my life wanting to be the best paid professional there was. Wanting to be the guy who got to the next bigger, better deal. Based on my charisma, based on the way we could move a group of people in a service and attract more numbers. And now here I am, some 20 years later, just now recognizing that, man, it's less about the glamour and the glitter, the special effects, the great words that I can orate up here. And it's more about the relationships, the day-to-day life that we're living. Because what I can tell you is I've seen a lot of people hired and fired based on their paid professional status. How many kids they had at their previous youth group. It doesn't tell you how much integrity they have. And we decided if we could flip that upside down, it's going to cause us to be intentional. If we say that we can't just go out and put out a job description for, hiring somebody to come and start a youth group here that we're going to pay lots and lots of money. If we're going to pay $100,000 to some guy, we could have the best youth ministry from the outside here at Ford Point. But that's the sexy Christian way. I don't think that youth pastor has 23,000 years to give us to reach the world. So we said we don't need that. We said that, we can be a people who are going to be discipled and then to disciple others. And as we do life together, we begin to see and watch, and we see different giftings. And man, we want to really hone in on this gifting that you have, like it's raw. But I believe I see a future. Do you see what we see? And it can be happening. It can happen. Man, Ford Point, the first place that there should be discipleship happening is in your family. If you're here this morning and you have a family, you need to take seriously the calling and the role that you have. If you're a dad or a father here, you are the spiritual tone for your family. To drive this idea of discipleship, of asking questions, of saying, okay, in today, how are we more like Christ? Or the reason we do this as a family is because of our decision to be more like Christ. The Christian way is to usher kids into the church program and let the church teach our kids. And it's kind of this multi-personality thing we got going on because they hear one thing at church and they see something different at home. And here's the thing about discipleship. Discipleship is caught. It's not taught. It's important to have some information. It's important. There are doctrinal things that you need to learn. But being a disciple, who was smart? Was the Pharisees. The disciples, they were ruled out. They were ruled out to being a disciple because they couldn't hack it when it came to the information. All the boys were started off on this path where they would have to memorize parts of the Old Testament. And if you couldn't hack it, then you had to go pursue the family business, become a fisherman. The people who could hack it, they're the ones who became the spiritual leaders. And when Jesus came, he chose the kids who couldn't hack it over the religious. Because it's not about information. It's about a group of people who can recognize that, you know what? I'm goofy. I don't have it all together. I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth more often than I'm not. I'm going to fall probably more often than I'm not. But I'm willing to go on that journey with you. I'm willing to remove the curtain, to come out of the darkness, to have some vulnerability. Discipleship is the first place. Family is the first place that discipleship is happening. I would encourage you to get involved in a life group. You can't pursue this idea of discipleship without a group of people who are going to be committed to you. And that's what a life group is. A life group, man, I tell you, life change happens in circles. And I pray that every life group is like my life group. I don't know, because I only go to mine. But our life group, man, it's not out of the ordinary for our life group to end with there being tears as people are experiencing freedom from sharing and being vulnerable, and we get to pray. There's life groups that refuse to stop meeting through the summer because they just love their group together. They love this idea of doing life together. It happens in life groups. It happens in men's groups, in the women's groups. It's being committed to these things. So this morning, 4 point, are you a Christian or are you a disciple? And it's okay, but the challenge is going to be this morning, and the challenge is going to be every morning to push you out of just the comfort Christianity into this life of being a disciple, somebody who's being discipled and someone who is also discipled, and someone who's putting into practice the things that they're learning. And I'm asking you to join me in this, because we got 33 years, I think. We can do it. So let's get busy. God, we're so grateful for this time that you've given us. We're so grateful that you chose first to pour into these 11 guys who, for all intents and purposes, had no resume to stand on, had no ability to pass them through, had no charisma that should have gotten into the place. But that's not the expectation. That's not the qualification. It doesn't require a qualification to get to being used by you. You qualify us based on the calling that you've given us. So this morning, God, we want to reflect on our faith. God, we're asking that you would search us and know us and see inside of us if there's any area of our life where our faith has just been compartmentalized into this American Christianity. And if it has, this morning we're asking that you would help us to begin to just give it back to you. To redeem it in our lives. That we can embrace our doubt. That we can see your love for us in the midst of the doubt that we maybe been trying to hide. And as we begin to pursue this vulnerability of being known, that in that we might experience you in a way that we were always meant to, but we're never able to because of our cultural Christianity. So God, I pray for Forward Point and all the people here at Forward Point, that as we begin to just say that we're going to pour into the individual. We're going to do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. And not next week, and not next month, and not next year, and not even 10 years from now, but God, we're going to be in your presence someday. And when we're in your presence, God, that you're going to allow us to look and to see the family member whose life was forever changed by the way we invested in them. That we're going to see people in different colors and different languages that were affected by our choice to disciple this one person a continent away. That the reach is going to go farther than we ever could on our own, not because of our ability to move a crowd during a service, but because our commitment to being a disciple and to make disciples and to put into practice what we're learning. Help us to do that this morning.
Was crippled by the weight of pain. He had me thinking I was out of reach. Oh, Jesus, mercy shut his mouth. I once was crippled by the weight of shame. Embarrassed, I couldn't even show my face. Oh, Jesus, then you heard you speak. Your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your heart. My hope is in the blood of Jesus. My own I am because of who you are. I hear you calling me beyond my sin. You tell me that grace is taking care of it. Oh, Jesus, you're my victory. Oh, Jesus, you're my victory. Your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your heart. My hope is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am. I know who I am. Your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your heart. My hope is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am. I know who I am. Sing with us. I serve a king. I serve a king with good intentions. God, you will never turn your back on me. How could a rich become your treasure? The love of God has changed my day. Let me hear you. Sing it again. I serve a king with good intentions. God, you will never turn your back on me. How could a rich become your treasure? The love of God has changed our destiny. My church, your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your heart. My hope is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am. 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 Let's sing it again. Your love. Your love. It comes with no conditions. Yes. You give us your heart. My hope is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am. I know who I am. Let's sing it one more time. Your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your heart. My hope is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am. I know who I am. Church, just give him a shout of praise this morning. Anyone raise a hallelujah this morning? Anyone ready? Let's do it. I raise a hallelujah. Come on, sing it, everyone. In the presence of my enemies, I raise a hallelujah. Louder than the unbelief, I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. Come on, let's sing. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. Yeah! Come on, here we go. I raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I raise a hallelujah.
love that song.
That was so good this morning. What
Yes.
stuck out to you, Casey?
You know, what really stuck out to me today was being a disciple and teaching people, and doesn't really start anywhere but the home. You know, coming together for dinner every night, and getting the kids used to coming to church, and keeping them engaged through those teenage years, because you guys all know teenage years can be pretty frustrating. So that's what stood out to me is if it starts at home, then it can really blow up.
I related to Jimmy with bumping your head against the wall when you're doing customer service over the phone. I did that for a couple of years, and sometimes you just want to hop through the other side of the screen. But also what I took away is I was just thinking, if artificial intelligence can tell the Women of the Well story, just easy conversation, how cool would it be that we can change our language to do it that easy, to share that gospel, to share those messages? And I think that's what we're learning with this discipleship is just conversation, just breaking it down, not having the Christianese in it all. So maybe I'll take some pointers from the AI over there.
Not a bad idea. And, I don't have a poker face.
Right.
And he talked about that.
Yeah,
and
so
I'm
we're working on
it.
that.
Hey, listen, guys, we are so happy that you've joined us today. If you would, meet us in the back after service and help us clean up. We've got people back there to help you get all set up with what we need to get the palace back in shape.
Yes. If this is your home church or home community of faith and you want to pour back into the community as we always do, there are multiple ways to give. Here in person today with our Joy Box back in the corner. You can do it through our website, through the Church Center app, and you can text any amount to a number as well. And again, we just want to thank you for going over an abundance so we can continue to give back to our community. And, there's always ways to get involved. Don't forget, in 2 weeks, we need baked goods. So meet Miss Carol, our Miss Lois, back at the info desk. She does have a sign-up. Again, men, don't forget about that retreat that's coming up. Talk to Jimmy if you need more information. And don't forget to join us for Sunday Fun Day.
Yeah, and one more thing, very important.
Yeah.
We love your kids, but
Yeah.
we want you to go raise them. So if you
Yes.
wouldn't mind picking up your kids before you meet us over there at Love Handles, that would be great.
Yes. And we're going to continue with one last song. Oh, one last thing. Sorry. Our prayer team is in the back corner. If there's anything on your heart, don't leave here without getting prayed for. They're great. They're confidential, and they will pray with you about anything and everything.
And we keep saying one last thing.
Yes.
I'll be at the welcome desk. So if you have any questions, please meet me back there. And thank you, guys. This is Forward Point.
Yes.
All right, not that I can see hands here. Anyone grow up in Sunday school or any kids program when you were a kid? You'd sing some songs. So for anyone who did, I know I told my mother, I'm like, you got to stick around for the last song here. I'm like, you're going to relive some of my childhood here. But
This one's for you, Mom.
it's right. Here we go. Thinking of Jimmy's graph up there, I thought I was watching like a Warren Buffett financial compound interest or Dave Ramsey thing on, doing some plastic surgery on your credit cards. But, we're so likely to think about when it comes to multiplication and thinking about compounding things when it comes to finance. I mean, Jesus was just so practical when it came to the kingdom. And I think a lot of times with the bait of Satan or the lie that he gives us is that, how many times we turn on the news and all we just do, we put our head down, we get so disgusted about the stuff. And sometimes we say, why God, why? Or sometimes we just say there's no hope. It's too far gone. But do we ever think about it's just one? Just one. If Jesus, the Son of God, would just come along someone and say, hey, come follow me. Why would we think we'd be above that? just pray that we would simplify our faith and realize how good he is. Amazing love that welcomes me, the kindness of mercy that bought with blood wholeheartedly, my soul undeserving. Here we go. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. Let me hear you, church, yes. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Behold the cross, age to age, and hour by hour, the dead are raised, the dead are raised, the sinner saved, the work of your power. Here we go, God, God, you're so good, God, you're so good, God, you're so good, you're so good to me. Let's sing that again. God, you are so good, and God, you're so good. Oh God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am called. I am healed. I am whole. I am saved in Jesus' name. I live favor anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. Let's sing that again. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. I live favor anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. And should this life bring suffering, Lord, I will remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever. Let's sing that verse 3 again. And should this life bring suffering, Lord, I will remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever. Let's just hear voices only. Here we go. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. Oh God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Let's just sing it one more time. God, you're so good. And God, you're so good. God, you're so